Empath's ultimate comeback, the feeler's silent revenge on narcissists. The person you are desperately trying to save isn't a wounded bird. They are a psychological predator meticulously studying your vulnerabilities. You aren't healing them. You are committing emotional suicide. Watch until the end to discover the terrifying, bleeding truth they desperately hope you never figure out. The death of the emotional punching bag, a shattering psychological awakening. For decades, you have been profoundly lied to. You were handed a beautiful, glowing narrative that your immense sensitivity, your endless capacity to absorb the agonies of others, was a divine gift. But let us strip away the romanticized illusions right now. That supposed gift was systematically weaponized against you. It was a perfectly designed psychological trap, turning your soul into an emotional punching bag for those who feed on your light in the darkest corners of human nature. The era of the weeping, relentlessly forgiving empath is dead. We are currently standing at the precipice of a silent, yet utterly devastating transfer of power, a catastrophic end to the toxic psychological orders that have chained you to your own destruction. The inner multiverse welcomes you to the front line of this awakening. If you are ready to shatter the chains of manipulation and reclaim the sovereign territory of your mind, I urge you to subscribe to our channel right now. Your support is the vital catalyst that fuels our motivation to continue delivering these deeply life-altering psychological arsenals in our upcoming videos. Now, let us delve into the uncomfortable, bleeding truth that likely keeps you awake at night. For far too long, highly sensitive souls have been violently conditioned by a morbid societal doctrine. You were taught that your inherent worth was directly proportional to your capacity for enduring abuse. You were brainwashed into believing that unconditional sacrifice, placing the traumas, tantrums, and endless voids of profoundly broken people at the absolute center of your universe, was the epitome of moral superiority. I am here to tell you that it was not goodness. It was a slow, agonizing psychological suicide. You became ensnared in the insidious web of toxic positivity, a relentless, self-destructive compulsion to dig desperately for a microscopic spark of good in predators who harbored absolutely no goodwill toward you. I have watched this tragedy unfold in countless lives, and perhaps you are living it right now, feeling the very life force drained from your veins while you smile and offer yet another unearned second chance. This chronic leniency, this desperate need to heal those who are fundamentally committed to remaining broken, did not make you a savior. It made you the ultimate, perfect target. The emotional parasites of this world did not seek you out because you were fragile or weak. They hunted you because you possessed a radiant, self-replenishing resource of empathy that their hollow chests completely lacked. Today, we will incinerate the lie that endless endurance is a virtue and step into a terrifying, yet profoundly liberating new reality. The illusion of the broken bird, unmasking the predator. As we step out of the ashes of that incinerated lie, we must first confront the grotesque reality of who, or rather what, we have been sacrificing our vital energy for. For years, you looked at the person draining you and saw a wounded bird with a broken wing. You convinced yourself that beneath their cruelty, their coldness, and their calculated manipulations, there was a frightened, misunderstood child crying out for love. This is the most fatal projection of the empathic mind. We take our own vast emotional depth and superimpose it over a psychological abyss, assuming that everyone possesses a conscience buried somewhere beneath their pain. I need you to hear this with every fiber of your being. They are not broken in a way that your love can fix. Their emptiness is not a temporary wound. It is their permanent structural foundation. You were not pouring your golden light into a cracked vessel that would eventually heal. You were pouring it into a black hole that despised you for having the very light it lacked. It is a terrifying day when the veil drops and you realize the predator was never confused. They knew exactly how much it hurt you when they dismissed your tears. They felt a surge of absolute power when they watched you twist yourself into knots, desperately trying to apologize for their atrocious behavior. They were studying your triggers, mapping the geography of your vulnerabilities, not to protect you, but to know exactly where to strike when their fragile, insatiable ego demanded a sacrifice. They mirrored your deepest desires in the beginning, only to slowly dismantle your sanity piece by piece. You must stop mourning the illusion of their potential because the person you were desperately trying to save never existed. It was a meticulously crafted mirage, built entirely from the reflection of your own beautiful, desperate yearning for connection, designed to keep you running on the endless, exhausting treadmill of their demands. Acknowledging this premeditated exploitation is an agonizing betrayal of your own hope, but it is the absolute, bleeding truth that will finally set you free. The architecture of exhaustion, mourning the lost self. Confronting the true predatory nature of those we tried to save inevitably forces us to look inward at the devastating wreckage they left behind in the sanctuary of our own minds. You did not just lose time with them, you lost the very architecture of your identity. I remember the exact sensation of looking in the mirror and not recognizing the hollowed-out, anxious ghost staring back at me. This is the stage of profound psychological decay, where the body begins to keep the brutal score of every boundary you allowed them to cross. You became hypervigilant, a master at walking on eggshells, constantly scanning the emotional atmosphere for the slightest micro-shift in their mood. Your nervous system was systematically rewired to associate peace with impending danger, leaving you trapped in a state of chronic, agonizing adrenaline and cellular exhaustion. You traded your authentic joy, your passions, and your sovereign peace for a permanent, suffocating state of crisis management. Yet the deepest tragedy of this parasitic dynamic is not merely what they did to you, but what they successfully conditioned you to do to yourself. You became your own secondary abuser. You consistently gaslit your own intuition, aggressively silencing that screaming, visceral feeling in your gut that warned you something was horribly wrong. You rationalized their disrespect and normalized their cruelty so often that you entirely forgot what basic human decency felt like. There is an immense, crushing grief in realizing how deeply you abandoned your own soul to keep a parasitic entity comfortable. You must allow yourself to aggressively mourn this lost time, the hijacked energy, and the shattered fragments of your former self. You must sit in the deeply uncomfortable silence of your own self-betrayal and weep fiercely for the version of you that was sacrificed on the altar of their unending dysfunction. This mourning phase is not a sign of weakness or regression. It is the violent, necessary purging of their psychological poison from your bloodstream, the crucial, tearing preparation of your internal soil before anything authentic can possibly begin to grow again. The crucible of detachment, severing the trauma bond. Rising from the ashes of your own mourning demands that we forge a weapon sharp enough to sever the suffocating, invisible cords that still bind you to their memory. We are now stepping into the crucible of detachment, the most agonizing yet fundamentally vital battle of your entire human existence. Breaking a deeply entrenched trauma bond is not a peaceful, mindful retreat. It is a violent, cellular withdrawal from a psychological narcotic. Your brain has been chemically conditioned to crave the very chaos that is systematically destroying you. When you finally say no, when you erect that impenetrable wall of absolute no contact, do not expect them to gracefully accept your boundaries. Expect an all-out, vindictive war. The precise moment they realize they can no longer freely access your emotional reservoir, their false mask will completely shatter. You will witness their unhinged fury, their calculated smear campaigns, and their pathetic, desperate attempts to hoover you back into the abuse cycle with hollow, manufactured promises they have absolutely no intention of honoring. In these early days of separation, the silence of their absence will feel completely deafening. You will be fiercely tempted to reach out, desperately seeking closure or validation from the very person who tore you open. But you must intimately understand that seeking closure from a psychological predator is like drinking venom to cure a wound. The only genuine closure you will ever receive is the cold realization that their continuous, destructive behavior was the final, definitive answer. You have to willingly endure the trembling, sleepless nights, the sudden, crashing waves of panic, and the agonizing cognitive dissonance where your traumatized heart screams for the illusion, while your logical mind knows the devastating reality. You must become completely, unapologetically ruthless in your self-protection. block their numbers, sever all access points, and absolutely refuse to participate in their distorted, alternate reality. Every single time you deny them entry into your sacred mental space, you are actively taking back a piece of your stolen territory. It will undeniably feel like you are dying, like your chest is being physically ripped open. But I promise you, it is not death. It is the painful, bloody, and necessary process of being forcefully resurrected from a psychological grave you never belonged in, the birth of the sovereign mind, a ruthless reclamation. Surviving the brutal, exhausting withdrawal of the trauma bond eventually gives way to the most profound and terrifying metamorphosis a human soul can endure, the birth of the sovereign mind. You are no longer the weeping, endlessly forgiving emotional punching bag who willingly bleeds out just to keep toxic people warm. That fragile, overly accommodating version of you had to die a permanent death so that this formidable new iteration could be fiercely born. You are emerging from the darkness as an absolute fortress. Your deep empathy has not been destroyed, but it has been permanently, radically revolutionized. It is no longer a public dumping ground for the world's unresolved toxicity. It is now a highly secure, heavily guarded, gated community, and the absolute cost of admission is unwavering respect, total authenticity, and reciprocal effort. You have finally grasped the profound truth that genuine compassion requires boundaries forged from impenetrable steel. You have successfully learned how to look directly into the eyes of a manipulator, instantly recognize the mechanics of their sinister game, and feel absolutely nothing but a cold, unshakable indifference. The sheer power of your no has become a devastating, unyielding force of nature. You no longer shrink yourself, over-explain, frantically justify, or negotiate your fundamental right to exist in total peace. You simply cut the energetic cord and walk away without a single backward glance, completely detached from their inevitable rage. This is the profound, shattering psychological awakening the inner multiverse promised you at the very beginning of our journey. You have forcefully reclaimed the throne of your own mind, sitting unapologetically in the absolute stillness of your hard-won, fiercely protected peace. The agonizing loneliness you once feared more than death has beautifully transformed into a luxurious, empowering solitude, a sacred sanctuary where absolutely no one is ever allowed to drain your vital life force again. You have become extremely dangerous to the emotional parasites of this world because your soul can no longer be bought, manipulated, or sustained by breadcrumbs of false affection. As you boldly step forward into this new, sovereign reality, wear your deep psychological scars not as pathetic badges of victimization, but as the lethal, glorious armor of a survivor who stared directly into the black abyss of human manipulation and completely conquered it. You are awake, you are sovereign, you are untouchable now. And finally, conclusion. The journey from psychological abuse to ultimate emotional sovereignty is a profound, agonizing, yet deeply necessary metamorphosis. We must first unmask the predators we mistakenly viewed as wounded birds, accepting the terrifying reality that our boundless empathy was weaponized to feed an endless black hole of manipulation. Acknowledging this premeditated exploitation forces us into a brutal but vital mourning phase. We do not just grieve the illusion of who they were, but we weep for the shattered fragments of our former selves, the authentic identity we abandoned to survive the chronic, cellular exhaustion of their environment. However, this painful purging is the exact crucible where true power is forged. Severing a trauma bond requires unapologetic ruthlessness and the endurance to survive a violent psychological withdrawal. By establishing absolute detachment, blocking all access, and realizing that their toxic behavior is the only closure you will ever need, you begin to resurrect your hijacked soul. Ultimately, this brutal trial gives birth to the sovereign mind. Your empathy is no longer a public dumping ground. It transforms into a heavily guarded fortress where boundaries are forged in unbreakable steel. You emerge not as a broken victim, but as a formidable, untouchable survivor, indifferent to manipulation, fiercely protective of your peace, and wholly empowered in your reclaimed, luxurious solitude. Profound lesson. The most vital lesson is that empathy without ironclad boundaries is a profound act of self-destruction. You cannot heal psychological predators with your love, nor can you fix those who use your golden light to mask their inherent darkness. True compassion requires you to fiercely protect your own vital life force before extending it to anyone else. Application to current life. Stop projecting a conscience onto those who consistently demonstrate they lack one. If an individual's presence forces you into a state of hypervigilance or makes you abandon your authentic self to keep the peace, you must stop trying to save them. Apply this today by aggressively trusting your gut intuition. Practice the radical power of saying no without over-explaining, negotiating, or apologizing for your basic right to peace. Guard your mental space by demanding unwavering respect, complete authenticity, and reciprocal effort as the absolute minimum cost of admission into your life. When confronted with manipulation, choose cold indifference over emotional engagement, cut the cord, and walk away. Question for you: what is one boundary you have successfully set to protect your mental peace? Or what is a boundary you know you need to establish right now? Please take a moment to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your perspective is incredibly valuable and might be the exact insight someone else in our community needs to read today. If this message resonated with your journey, please hit the subscribe button to support the channel. Your subscription gives us the tremendous motivation needed to keep producing deep, transformative content like this for you.